It's really an awful shame to see that somebody is parting out this 2003 zinc yellow Mustang Mach 1. The car looks pretty straight. It might have had some accident history or a salvage title or something like that, but it says that it lost compression in the engine, so they're going to part it out. And to me, it kind of looks like they bought it this way and they're parting it out. I don't believe this was their car. There's other cars in the background too that they're parting out, so you know, it could just be something they're trying to do to make some money, but it's really a shame that they would take such a good car, such a straight car, one that the interior looks pretty good with, and 165,000 miles, that's not so bad. But it's a real shame that they would decide to part this car out, because it could easily be saved and it could be back on the road. Now maybe they don't have the title, or there might be some kind of issue like that. It's hard to tell in pictures, and it could have a salvage title, so the value of the car is a lot lower, but still it's really sad to see such a good looking car like this being parted out when it's complete. Now, looking at this side, obviously the Mach 1 stripes are missing off the door and the rear quarter panel. Possibility that there was damage there and it was repaired at one time, and that the stripe kit was never put back on. Never know the real reason, but it still looks like a pretty good car, pretty straight. And after having a couple of wrecked ones myself that I've put back together and that I'm working with, I can see that this is a really good platform to start off. And they said not willing to sell whole and not willing to sell as a roller, so they're not even wanting to sell the good parts and then get rid of the car to someone who might want to fix the car eventually. And that makes you wonder if the car's stolen, or if it has some kind of a lost title or something like that. Not to accuse anybody of anything, but that does make your eyebrow raise a little bit to why they'd be wanting to park the car out completely at this point. But looking at the pictures, the car looks like it's in really good shape, and I know it's hard to tell if the top of it's faded or peeling just by the pictures, but the bumper looks really good, the taillights look good, everything looks really nice on the car. And like I said before, in the ad it said it was completely stock, so that's actually pretty rare to find one like this. And it's one of 869 zinc yellow 03 Mach 1s, so that's a pretty low number car, especially because we'll be looking at another one here that's totaled, and that's 2 out of 869 that won't be back on the road. Maybe the other one will get fixed, we'll see, but we'll look at those pictures in a second here. And so looking at the rarity of this car, being zinc yellow, there were 869 made, and the interior upgrade package, which this car is, there were 770. So this is one of 770 in that breakdown, and being a 5-speed that's zinc yellow, it was one of 720. So really too bad to see that out of that low of production that there's one sitting here that is fine right now, but it's being parted out, and he's selling things. I've already seen he sold the gauge cluster. I know that the parts are going to be worth some money and that he'll make some money off the car, but it's more of a shame of what he's doing to such a cool car. So you can see other Mustangs in the background. I know he deals in these kinds of cars, so he thinks that's where the money is, and maybe that's good for him, but it's really unfortunate. I've seen a lot of people over the years who say that their dream car is a Mach 1, or a lot of other people who say they'd just love to have a Mach 1. I mean, there are a lot of people who have a V6 or GT, and this is just an incredible car compared to what they have, and they would love to have one like this. And I'm not saying they have to get rid of their other car. They could get this one cheap and fix it up, and they can enjoy it. And even if you put this car away for 20 years and enjoy it later, I think it would be worth saving. Here, but looking at the shaker, you can see it's kind of faded. So the car has seen some sun, and no, it's not perfect, but it is a straight body looking car. Now, I don't know if you can reach underneath and poke your finger through the bottom of it. Maybe there's a ton of rust, but it says it's a California car, so that might not be the case. There is some seat bolster wear on the driver's side, and that's normal. A lot of them have that. Mine has that with just 90,000 miles on it, so it's not like that's a terrible thing. I think the seats look really good for what they are, especially the back seat. So really too bad to see a complete car like this being parted out. And that's especially true when you look at this zinc yellow Mach 1 that has a pretty good hit to the front passenger side. It's sad to see this one wrecked like this. It had messed up the steering and the wheel, and maybe it's just the tire that's flat that's making it lean that bad, but it got a pretty good hit. And this car could be saved as well, but it does look like it has a lot more damage than they typically would, you know. So sad to see another one. This one is actually in Hawaii and it's on Copart, but this one's been hit pretty bad and is leaning pretty bad. So this one is an example of one that if it is not saved, it wouldn't be too bad. The interior is really nice on the car. This is a lower mileage car. Back seat looks perfect. A lot of the back seats are always like that. But the engine bay doesn't look too bad. I mean, everything looks complete. Doesn't look like it messed up the radiator or anything. But 78,000 miles. So too bad to see that this one is pretty mangled. Somebody might put it back on the road. But there's the VIN number in case anybody comes across this car and wants to know if it's their old car or something. Like I said, it was in Hawaii. And here you can see the R in the VIN number, 1FAFP42R. R is in Romeo, and that means Mach 1 for the 03 and 04 Mustangs. So real Mach 1, and it looks like this one was actually produced in 7 of 03, just like my Azure Blue one. So being a July car, mine has the DB heads, the 9-thread cylinder head on them, so there's a good chance that this one's a late enough build that it also has the 9-thread heads that appeared on the 04 Mach 1s. But the point I want to make is that there are some of these that are wrecked really bad like this one, and there are plenty of parts on this one like the gauge cluster and things that can be saved and sold, because people say, well, if nobody ever parted one of these out, we wouldn't have extra parts. But there are a lot of them like this that are wrecked so badly that they're not going to be fixed, and there are some good parts on there, and I think that these are the cars that those parts need to come from, and if the car can be put back together relatively easily, it needs to be saved. So really sad to see. This one looks like the engines took a pretty good hit as well, and sometimes they're okay and they can be saved as well, the engines, but sometimes if the car gets rear-ended really hard or hit in the back, I've heard sometimes the exhaust that's connected all the way from the heads all the way back to the tail end of the car, if it gets hit hard enough, it could crack the cylinder head or cause damage. And so you never know how bad the damage is. This is kind of a risk, but you know, there still could be some pretty good parts on this. But looking at this car, it's a dark shadow gray built in December of 2002, so one of the earlier Mach 1s, and actually that VIN number, the letters look a lot different than the other one, but there is the R. So that means Mach 1 for 0304. Yeah, the font's different on those letters, kind of interesting. But looking inside the car, you can see it's an automatic and it's a non-interior upgrade package car. So out of the dark shadow gray Mach 1s for 2003, that puts this one as one of 1,595, so more produced than the zinc yellows, but a non-interior upgrade package car, this is one of 232, and being an automatic, it makes it one of 312 of those dark shadow gray Mach 1s. So that's actually pretty interesting. So pretty rare, 232. So that's a pretty rare breakdown for that car. But like I said, I don't feel bad about this one being parted out because it's pretty bad. It could be fixed maybe. Once you start cutting all that stuff away and throwing it away and looking at what you have, it might be a lot better. That's how my silver GT was. Once I got it cut up and cleaned up, I realized it was quite an easy fix. Now there were a couple more Mach 1s my friends had sent me, and I don't have the greatest pictures of those, so I didn't include much. This one is hit so bad that the bumper support is really bad in the front, but my GT looked kind of similar. But anyway, it could have ruined the engine on that one. And this one, it doesn't look too bad on this side, but the other side was just totally unrecognizable, just destroyed. So there are cars like this where I think that's where you can get the shaker hood and the parts and the gauge cluster and the seats, and I think there's plenty of them out there like this that can be parted out, and the ones that are straight shouldn't be parted out, the ones that can be fixed. I thought about this one a lot because it was cut in half. This one's definitely not going to be fixed. There were so many of them wrecked. This was 13 years ago. These pictures were all uploaded to the internet, and these are all Azure Blue Mach 1s. I mean, these aren't even the different colors. These are Azure Blue Mach 1s that were totaled, and you can go on to the Mach 1 registry website and find a lot of these pictures. I remember this one went end over end, and the kid lived and he bought another one right after it, same color. But there were just so many of these that have been wrecked over the years, and the parts to these cars are probably still available. I mean, they've been sold off, but I mean, you don't have to part out a perfectly good one to find the parts. There are so many of them that have been wrecked, and it's just really sad to see. But you do have to consider the numbers of these cars must have dwindled over the last 20 years almost, you know. And they're getting wrecked every year, and they're just going to be harder to find. But look at all these poor blue Mach 1s, and they've all just been destroyed. So it's just the point that I want to make, that, you know, there's a lot of them out there that are unfortunately going to be wrecked beyond repair, like this one that's been rolled over. That one's just completely gone, and you know, some of them might be able to be fixed, and I don't think a lot of these were. I think these ones were all pretty bad, but you just look at this and you see how many have been completely destroyed, and you don't have to go take another one and take it off the road, you know. So I just can't believe all these pictures, and like I said, this was 13 years ago, so many more have been wrecked since then. Unfortunately, out of all these wrecked Mach 1s, a lot of the parts probably did get thrown away or crushed once the people who had the cars got what they wanted off of them. And you know, it would be nice if people would save every good Mach 1 part, and then over time there could be you know, more parts available. But I think what happens is a lot of people part out cars like this, and then they get tired of dealing with them, and then they throw it away even though it had some good parts left on it. But if you look at what I've done with my GT that was completely wrecked, and I was gonna part it out, but I fixed it, I think you can see that there's a lot here to be saved and enjoyed, because I love this car. And I don't have experience with body work and all that stuff, so I did this all in my side yard, and look at what an awesome car I have now. So anyway, too bad to see these cars like this. They are definitely getting more rare. And out of the '03 Mach 1s, like we've seen today, there were only 9,652 of those made. And so I've seen a ton of wrecked ones, and a lot of them being parted out. So the real shame is that this one's being parted out, even though it could be back on the road pretty quickly.